everybody, I'm Tara from Crooked Row, and today is going to be all about getting all of our starts in the ground. But before we do that, we're actually going to work on putting in our cattle panel trellis. We're going to do a hoop all the way down in our tomato beds, and it's going to be kind of like what we do, if you can see back behind me, but those are in raised beds. This we're going to do down this whole thing right here, and then we're going to, not today, we're not going to fence it in today, but we're going to utilize that trellis to grow our tomato plants, and I'm going to throw like some different flowers and things in here too. So we have to get started. We're going to use the materials, we're going to use, of course, cattle panels, but my husband had a great idea. I absolutely loved it. It was, this is not one rebar, this is like 10 right here, but we have pieces of rebar. I believe I bought 1/2 inch rebar, but it is steel, it's very heavy, and hammers. And then we're gonna go in and we're gonna put in what I'm going to probably end up calling the tunnel. So I have strong boys, as you can see, Elijah Lazy behind me, and Christopher, and we are going to put this up, and then we'll come back and talk to you about the tomatoes. So Christopher has gotten the machete because, if you can see, we have very thick sticker bushes, and it's actually in this entire bed. Look at that. But down there in particular, it is extremely thick where even the weed whacker can't get to it, the weed eater. So he's gonna machete this, and Elijah's gonna weed whack. We're not, we do no-till, so we try to chop and drop as much as we can. But those stickery bushes will end up raking out because we walk in here, so, and we don't want it to prick our feet. So Christopher's just gonna like get the bulk of it down. The reason why we typically will put rows in and cover it with mulch and do all of that, this year we're taking a different approach. That takes us so long to weed, it's ridiculous. So what we're doing this year is we're marking out where we're planting, like down, you can see down the cattle panel, that's like one line. And so we will disturb right where we're going to plant and a little bit away, like out in a circle, and then we're just going to weed whacker mow the rest. We're doing this in all of the garden that's planted in the ground. Okay, the kids and I, we have been hard at work. We have turned the soil over on both sides of the hoops, or the tunnel. What do we like better, hoops or tunnel? So now we're gonna get to planting tomatoes, peppers, and flowers. We might throw a couple other things in here, but the main one is that we're planting tomatoes. We have about 60 tomato plants that are gonna get planted, and I'm planting, I'm putting a little bit of triple phosphate down all over where we're planting. But as always, we are planting with Biotone and bone meal. This is actually my homemade bone meal. Let me show it to you. So here's my homemade bone meal. I don't know if you can see that. It's just powdery. And I did that from making broth from my own chickens. So when we tell you guys that we utilize everything, we actually utilize everything. The other thing that I'm gonna put on the ground is we had last year slaughtered a lamb, and I took the blood and we made blood meal from that too. So we're gonna put a little blood meal in it. So blood meal, bone meal, Biotone, and a little bit of triple phosphate. So we're gonna get started with that, but first we gotta load up on our homemade compost. So now that the boys have brought over the compost, I have put, so those are Amish paste that I have right there. The next panel is pink Brandywine, and we just interchanged those. Every panel we changed between Amish paste and pink Brandywine. And then we have 3 panels down by themselves right here. And I have Alice's Dream and more pink Brandywine down there. So that's all that we have on the panels. And through the center, we're going to, so the tomatoes are going to be planted here, as you can see. And on the inside, so we dug up a row right here, we're gonna be planting peppers and flowers on the inside. So we're gonna get to that. So last year, we planted marigolds with our tomatoes, and I love that. But the problem, and I can't believe I didn't think of this, I planted ones that get way too high. So, you know, your first tomatoes are usually about 12 inches up. I had marigolds that were like 3 feet tall last year. They were beautiful, but they kind of took away the show from my tomatoes. So we're gonna go ahead and plant those. I'm so excited to have this hoop all the way down, and we will mulch later. So we're gonna be lucky to get this planted and done. So we are kind of running out of time. As you can see, the sun is off to the west and it is ready to go to bed. So we are going to go ahead and plant these 60 tomato plants and more peppers and flowers so that we can get finished and clean up before the sun sets. So let's get started. So here's our first hole. I have my homemade bone meal. It's just a pinch. And bone meal takes about 4 months to break down. So when it actually is gonna need this, hopefully it'll be there. But this is why I supplement a bunch, and it can't hurt to apply bone meal. And you want about, per tomato plant, about a tablespoon of Biotone in the hole. And you take your beautiful tomato plants, and I'm gonna pull out all the weeds, the clover that's growing. I like to break that down a little, smush it down. I'm gonna cover this in compost, and I'm gonna slightly hill it because you want it to kind of stand up on its own. The other thing is, so typically once this is a couple feet high, these leaves down here will actually pinch off, okay? You really don't want anything on its stem really up to like this first level, okay? So this is a good way to show you guys right here. So do you see how there's a stem? This leaf node, see it has 3 leaves, and then this is coming out in what's called the crotch. Those need removed, okay? We'll continue to do it as it grows, but right now, let's only do it on these bottom ones. And then that plant is good. Here's hole 2. I would say that's about 2 feet apart, right? At least. You want your tomato plants to be 2 to 3 feet apart to conserve space. We're definitely making it 2. Okay, so here is our homemade bone meal from our chickens. I sprinkle the hole with it. And about a tablespoon of Biotone. Pull the beautiful plant out. Pull all this clover that's growing around it. Okay, beautiful plant. We're just gonna loosen it down in its hole. And then we're gonna take compost and you firm it so that it stands up. And you remember, tomatoes are different from everything else. You can actually backfill this hole higher than how it was potted. So we could actually take all these up and do it all the way up to here if we wanted. Yeah. We're not, but you can. So now we have tomato 1, tomato 2 on this trellis, and then we can move to the second trellis. Okay, so now we are on the back side of that first panel that I planted. And so on this back side, if we have a tomato plant here and a tomato plant over here, I am going to go in between those two. I could actually plant one over further. So I'll take this one here. And these are just King of the North bell peppers. And you largely do them just like tomatoes. So homemade bone meal and tablespoon of Biotone. And then we will kind of, you want to dump that in, fill this hole. Mm-hmm. That's good. And then fill that hole. And I'm just gonna nuzzle these plants down in it because these really aren't like the tomatoes and we don't want a big hill. We kind of want to plant it right where it's at soil level. And then move on to the next one. So I forgot to show that next to the peppers, I am planting, like this one will be strawberry blonde. The rest of them will be the other type of marigolds that I got. Now these are a little bit root bound, so I'm gonna break that up a bit so that the roots don't stay in place. And then utilize the compost. So what we have is pepper, which I haven't planted yet. Another hole for marigolds. Pepper, marigold, pepper. That's gonna go that way all through the inside of the trellis. Okay, well, we just finished. How was that?
It was good.
Tiring.
First hot day of the year. So.
That kind of hurts.
Yes. So we went ahead and we planted over 60 tomato plants. That's not the only tomato plants we have planted. We planted, how many pepper plants did we do, guys?
40, no, not 59, 49.
40, so about 50 pepper plants and a bunch of flowers. Hopefully they're gonna grow. If you're wondering why I'm growing them on these tunnels and why we've created this to begin with, we are doing this because we tend to get blight in the area, and well, 2 reasons. We tend to get blight, and if we have them up and off the ground, I can also see the blight better and address the issue right away. But second, was it last year or the year before, we did the let it grow on the ground method, and it grew super well. I mean, we had a very good crop, but our chickens tend to get into all of our garden no matter what we do, and they just hammered every tomato. I mean, it just got to the point where I was having to cut out where they got into and use the rest. I know that sounds gross, but we had like 300 tomato plants, and I think I ended up with like maybe 300 pounds. And if that sounds like a lot, that's only because I had 300 tomato plants. Like that means we got a pound from each plant. That's terrible. So this prevents that, and it helps us address fungal or any kind of disease issues right off the bat. So we'll keep you updated on how that's gonna go. So I think we're all ready to go in and take showers and eat dinner, right?
Absolutely.
So remember, if we can build a trellis and grow our tomato plants on it,
Anybody can.
anybody can. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.